In other video, we discussed about this REST API access policies. There is another method also to restrict accesses. So that is this one, REST API authentication scopes. So let's see how to use this authentication scopes. So I am using the same records, test users as test2 and test1, two auth clients, postman and general, scripted REST API with v1 and v2 endpoints. Access policies we can ignore for now. We can use this scope methods, API authentication scope methods in addition to these access policies, or they can be configured individually. So for now I am just keeping this as add2 only. So for enabling this authentication policies also, we need to have some plugin installed. So that plugin details are also mentioned in the documents. This one. So once that plugin is installed, we can see that here only REST API authentication scope. So I created this record, this one. So I created on my own test custom scripted REST API, and for the same get method and version v1, and on this resource path, same as this REST API access policies. We can define for all the methods and all the versions and all the resource. If we want granular access, then we can uncheck this and define our methods and versions and resource. So this is the main one, authentication scope. If we select this one, we will get already existing ones, or else we can create our own a new one. So this is a very normal record only with just a name. So we can give any meaningful name here, like as I am using on v1 only, I just given like v1 scope. So this related list will not come out of box. I just added this recently. So once this scope is recorded created, we can save this and attach that here. Okay, I will make this add to. So this scope method is like first we need to have this REST API authentication scope created, and once this scope is created, we need to link that to this authentication scope. So this is the main one, authentication scope. So we need to copy this authentication scope, and we need to give this scope access to whatever OAuth client we want. So as I have two OAuth clients, one is general and one is postman. I want to give that access to my postman client. So here I added. We can double click and we can select that from here. And save the record. This another one, general client. This don't have that authentication scope. So if I want to give that access to this one also, I can select here and I can save. But for testing purpose, I only want to give that to one client. So again, if I open my postman, as there are no restrictions on v2, we can call this with any method. Our restrictions are on v1, So as I shown in the earlier video also, with the basic authentication, I will not be given access because of this what policy rules, access policies. So for our testing purpose, I am just disabling this. So at present, only the scope-based restrictions are there. These ones. This API-based API access policies are not there. So as I disabled, I can access this at endpoint with the basic also. With the basics also, I can call this one because I just disabled that access policy, which is restricting only to Auth. These scopes related restrictions only apply for Auth. So this is scope concept, right? So the scope concept will come in play with Auth only. So whatever restrictions we placed with this REST API authentication scope, these will come into play only by when we are using Auth related tokens. But if we want to restrict like basic authentication is not allowed, then we need to use this API access policies. Now as we disable this one, let's see how to use this scope scope concept only. With basic authentication, it is fine. It is allowing access. And if I use Auth 2.0, as we disabled that policy, now test2 user also will be able to access. He need not to be part of any capacity group like that. So at present we are giving that scope access to Postman related tokens. So if anyone uses Postman token, whether the user is part of that capacity management group or not, it will not check. It will only check whether the scope is attached to this Postman client or not. So as at present, Postman client is having that V1 scope. It is allowing access to every Postman related token. So Postman with test user, it will give access. Postman with test 2 user, it will give access. But for this general user, this general client with test user, it will not give access because this general client Auth is not having that authentication scope. So only for Postman related tokens, it is allowing access. If we combine this scope concept and this API access policy concept, we can make more combinations. So now I enabled this access policy also and scope policy also. So now if I try to access this endpoint with basic, it will not allow because this access policy is enabled. Now I need to use only Auth. In that Auth, Postman with test user, it is allowing access because that scope is also matching and that user group is also user is also part of that capacity group. If I try to use this Postman with test user, it will not work because this test user is not part of that capacity management group. And if I try to use this general client, it will not allow access because that general client is missing that V1 scope. here in this one. So like this way we can have more restrictions for accessing our REST APIs.